All right. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Let's see here. Looks like I've got sound from the microphones, at least into OBS, so we're hopefully good on that front. Let me shuffle a couple of these windows around. Also, I see the Discord chat's a bit too wide, isn't it? Let's fix that before we go anywhere. Save. In there, seems good. Okay. That looks better. All right, so hello everyone. My name is Tim. I go by FoamyGuy on GitHub and Discord. This is the Deep Dive program. This is a weekly live stream program where we are working on CircuitPython code of various levels. Sometimes we're working on CircuitPython, the core itself, the actual C code that makes CircuitPython do what it does. Sometimes we're working on libraries. Sometimes we're working on projects. Sometimes we're working on examples or documentation or infrastructure. All kinds of different stuff. But the common thread amongst all of it is that it is all towards this CircuitPython project. So if you are brand new to the stream, if you haven't watched this before, if you're catching the VOD of this in the future and you haven't seen it before, CircuitPython, if you don't know what that is, that's a version of Python that runs on tiny computers called microcontrollers. In this case, there's a Raspberry Pi Pico W right here, this green little chip board here. This is essentially a microcontroller, and even more specifically, this big main chip there in the center is the microcontroller, and that is essentially just a computer inside of there, a relatively small computer, you know, compared to like a desktop or a cell phone or something like that in terms of specs, but still, you know, essentially a computer nonetheless. We are writing Python code that runs on that computer in order to interact with various hardware peripherals. In this case, as you can probably tell, I've got the microcontroller hooked up to this MIDI sequencer device, and then I actually have another microcontroller right here. This one's a Adafruit PyPortal. So this is another one of those tiny computers that runs CircuitPython, and once I jump into it, we'll be trying to use these two things together. But before I do that, let me finish the introduction. So that's who I am and what CircuitPython is. If you want to learn more about CircuitPython, I would encourage you to check out a few places. One of them is circuitpython.org. This is the main website for the project. The other one would be Discord, which is linked down below me, down that way actually, adafru.it/Discord. If you join us there on the Discord, that's also the chat, which is right below me on the stream there. The live broadcast chat is where we're at during the live stream right now. But we also have other channels on the Discord, like CircuitPython Dev channel, Help with CircuitPython channel, and other channels even beyond CircuitPython. So head over there if you are interested in learning more. If you have a CircuitPython device, if you're having trouble or you want to know how to do something with it, or whatever, right? Or you just want to get started joining the community, helping people out, learning how to contribute, learning how to code CircuitPython and that sort of stuff. Check out the Discord and get involved over there. CircuitPython is an open source project. It is all developed out in the open on GitHub and Discord. Like I mentioned before, all the coordination occurs through Discord, and all the code itself is actually open sourced in GitHub. This company right here, though, Adafruit, this is their website, adafruit.com. This company is the one providing the financial backing for CircuitPython. This is the company who's paying the folks who work on the project full-time. They're paying some other folks like me who works on the project part-time. These are the folks who are making CircuitPython a reality by paying all the developers who work on it. So thank you very much, of course, to Adafruit. And then if you want to help support the project, one of the ways you could do that is just by purchasing hardware from Adafruit. So head over to adafruit.com, get yourself some fun toys, and you can play with those and help out CircuitPython all at once. Now, let me catch up on the chat, and then we'll talk about what I'm going to do this evening. So let's close this one, and I'm going to have to rearrange these just a tad some more so that I can actually see the chat. Okay. Oh, there we are. Okay, how's it going, Gordy G? Thank you. Appreciate the heads up on the sound there. Dave Odessa, how's it going over there on YouTube? Happy Friday to both of you. DJ Devin, how's it going? I'm glad that you're here. The device which we'll be working on tonight is a device that was designed by DJ Devin, who's in the chat here. So thank you again to DJ Devin for offering to send me one of these. And that's what I'll be playing with here in a little bit once we get into it. Beata, how's it going? Today is Friday. Yep. Happy Friday to Beata. I assume maybe that's the same Beata who's usually over on YouTube, perhaps. Maybe joining us over on Discord this evening, or perhaps a different one. Either way, happy to have you. Love the Factory, how's it going? Hello from Colorado. Yep. Let's see, DJ Devin, we even have 3D printing, PC to bind. Yep. So yeah, even outside of programming, there's also PCB development and design, like the routing for the PCBs and stuff like this, as well as 3D printing and some other channels as well. So it's not specific to just CircuitPython. The Discord, there's lots of great stuff there. If you have any interests sort of in the maker universe, then you'll probably find something you're interested in over there. Okay, how's it going, David Smith over on YouTube? So what I am going to work on tonight is the other day I got this soldered up, and then I streamed for just a little bit working on the initial kind of software, working on some initial software that would send MIDI events through the USB back to my computer so that I could start playing some music with this thing. So if you're interested in like the very beginnings of that, there is a VOD for that over on my own channel if you want to check out the beginning of what I'm going to continue on with tonight. I will say, though, we're not necessarily going to just pick up where we left off. I'm actually going to be working on a different portion of this that I did not mess with on the stream before. And so what you might notice here is that I have a PyPortal. Into my PyPortal, I have plugged this 4-pin stemma, the big stemma, not the stemma QT, but the big one connector. These are running over to the GPIO pin header on the sequencer. So I actually have the PyPortal hooked up to a couple of the pins on the sequencer, which ultimately means it's actually, it's ultimately hooked up to this Pico here. Split City is doing a synthy project with those LED buttons too. Nice. Yeah, these buttons are super sweet for synth or sequencer type thing where you want like an on-off, easily controllable from the buttons. They're super cool for that. And Liz is always making all sorts of great stuff. So I thank you for mentioning that. I'll have to keep my eye out for that because I'm sure it'll be awesome. So from what I understand, some of these MIDI sequencers, they had a display. Mine did not come with the display, which is totally cool because this actually gives us the opportunity to figure out how do we add a display to this thing. And what I have come up with is, I think, going to be a pretty nice way, which is that instead of hooking up the display directly to this Pico, connecting the SPI bus or connecting I2C ports or whatever, connecting the display directly to this, instead of that, what if we just have this whole other microcontroller here, right? This is its own whole microcontroller, its own tiny computer, all to itself. Oops. Maybe that sound is actually coming through. Let me double check OBS. Is that sound coming through? Yeah, it looks like it should be, right? Are folks hearing that? Let me know if it's too loud or too quiet. I did not actually mean to turn that on, but that'll give you a preview of what the actual sequencer sounds like. Hit me up in one of the chats if that's too loud or too quiet, and I can tweak it further. But my thought was, why don't we offload the entire display to a secondary device? So I have a PyPortal here. It's actually just connected via UART. I have the ground connected, and I have TXRX connected, which are actually SDA, SCL, but we can use them like TXRX, and they're just connected to pin 0 and 1 on the Pico. So I have a UART connection going back and forth, and then what we'll do is the sequencer will just continually send data to the PyPortal. The PyPortal will just continually receive that data and then update the display each time new data comes in. So the Pico will send information over to the PyPortal. The PyPortal will display that information on the screen. But beyond that, they don't have any interconnection. So like the PyPortal can't control the music. The Pico doesn't control the display directly. It just sends a data blob that the PyPortal knows how to parse and put onto the display there. It's fine. Thank you. Appreciate the heads up there. Fairly loud. I will say I can turn it down just a scotch, but the other thing I would say is maybe If my voice is loud, you could try the volume on your end as well, or if there's a huge difference between my voice and the sequencer, then I can drop the sequencer a bit as well. Could be a little quieter. Okay, let me chunk it down right inside OBS. I have a couple other places where I can play with the volume, and we won't use the same exact tone every time. So some of the tones are louder, quieter, and stuff like that. So just let me know, though, as I do go out. So I will say, like, I don't normally stream audio focused stuff like this, so I am kind of new with that, getting it all fed in and everything. Just let me know as I go throughout the stream tonight if ever I play anything that is too loud, or if I get too quiet or whatever. Don't hesitate to just poke me in the chat there and let me know that it's too loud or too quiet. I can try to get it adjusted. So let me catch up here. She's doing a quantizer called the MIDI Melody Maker. Nice, which is basically a sequencer that you plug in to plug into her Eurorack stuff. This one is MIDI only. Nice. Fairly loud, so let me catch up over on Discord as well. Sounds good. Electronic music can never be too loud. Nice. Was suffering from an off by one error earlier this week. See, I know nothing about MIDI except how to push buttons and make beeps, bleep bloops. My first ever creating a MIDI controller. Yeah, first time ever. Yeah. I am even newer than you. The only MIDI I've ever really messed with is just the code on this, which is barely anything I've done so far. Can still hear me over the music. I like my dials at 11, but I'm also deaf in one ear. Surprise. Tonight also for a stream with Tim. How's it going, Paul SK? Yep, and happy almost New Year to everyone. I'll second that sentiment as well. So thanks for tuning in, Paul SK. It's happy to have you. So I'm just going to jump straight in. I will turn on the Pi portal. So the only thing I really have going so far is I've got the version of the MIDI software pretty much where we left it on the last time that I streamed, although I did tweak a few more things actually off stream. I was playing with some of the other D-pad buttons to make those do a few more things. But that's really the only change from the last time that I did show the version of software on stream. And then the only thing besides that I will say that is also new is sending data through the UART. So let's get the Pi portal hooked up. So right now the Pi portal is actually on a different program. This is just another thing I was doing earlier today. So we have the Pico is on Circuit Pi, and then the Pi portal should then be on Circuit Pi 1. I'm going to copy that and paste a copy of it called code. This is label X offset test. We'll have a PR for that coming soon, but it's neither here nor there, not related to this thing. I should have, I think, code. Is it UART reading or something? UART read. Okay, so I'm specifically working on the UI for this MIDI sequencer to send it over to the Pi portal, but one of the things I wanted to try to like illustrate with this particular stream is this idea of like offloading your display to a secondary microcontroller. This is a much more general idea that could be applied to lots of projects beyond this, right? It doesn't have to just be MIDI or sequencers or anything related to this. This idea of like hooking up via UART or whatever to communicate between two microcontrollers and have one handle all the display stuff and have the other one handle all of the actual stuff the project does. This is a more general idea that I'm hoping to kind of show and just highlight as a possibility out there for folks. So right now, the only code that's on the Pi portal is just hooking up the UART, again, using SDA and SCL, because those are the two pins that are in that little stemma connector. Hooking up the UART, trying to read data from it inside of a loop. If we actually found some data, then print the length of it, print the data itself. And then in my case, I'm also turning the data into a bytes IO and then doing message pack unpack on the bytes object, this is basically just a way that compresses data into bytes. Tinkering Tech is new with MIDI too. Nice. We'll be learning all together. Are you Starting up a new boy band, Tim. I should, but I am not. So, I had the thought to myself the other day, I would be tickled to death. I would be thrilled if I could get this thing working well enough and have enough luck with my musical ability, which I will say is probably fairly slight, but if I had enough luck to put together a jingle for this stream, I would be thrilled with that. So that might be our kind of goal, is like get it working well enough and then come up with a little jingle that I could play during the stream, like for the intro or something like that. I thought would be a nice idea. So right now we're pretty much just reading data that comes in. We print it out, we try to unpack it, and we print it, and that's pretty much it. In the sequencer side of things, I have a new task called Update Display. So for folks that are new and didn't catch the previous one, the way this code works is it's an async script. So there's lots of different tasks, and then each task gets added into this gather function here, which is what ends up calling them to happen over and over. I now have this one, Update Display. If we go inside of there, it's basically building a dictionary object and then packing it into a bytes.io object with message pack, so that it's kind of message pack. It's kind of like JSON, but it packs it into an object, a really dense object of bytes, rather than JSON, which is much more like human legible and not necessarily optimized for least amount of disk space, whereas message packet really tries to it's not like compression, it's not zipping it, but it's cutting out white spaces, it's compressing it down to bytes, it's giving you a byte representation. So essentially we're able to just take an object, send it through the UART port, so we're just writing it there. We write a new line so the other side can read it one line at a time. And then that's all this one does. Update Display just does that, and it does sleep. This code down here was an attempt at some other stuff. We might get back to that if we need to, but for now we're going to start with just this one. So Update Display, this will run every 0.125 seconds. It will create this object, which contains a couple of the values from our state object. It will pack them up into bytes, and it will write them across the UART. So theoretically, so this is the output from the Pico side. We see our bytes getting written over and over again here on the Pico side. If I connect up the PyPortal side, we should see those same bytes coming in over here as well. Yeah. So we see our bytes coming across, and then if I slow it down or stop it here for just a minute, we can see the unpacked version of this object. So right now what our object has is a list of numbers, which actually these numbers represent notes. And then it also has a selected index, which is also a number. In this case, it's -1. Let me rerun this again real fast. And then while this is running, let me turn on one of the sequencer indexes. Ah, right. Sorry, that's my bad. Yeah, here, let me change the default on that before we go much farther. I was experimenting with a stop mode. That's not an official term, but I was experimenting with a mode that changes the way the note off behavior works. Where did I put the send off here, actually? So we'll just default that to true, actually, for now. True, okay. Where's my terminal so far over here? Okay, so this is our PyPortal. This is what we're receiving. The sequencer is running again. I'll turn on one thing. We can hear it buzz there. I'll turn it off after. Well, here's what I'll do is I'll stop this. Stop that, and then I'll turn it off so we don't have to keep listening to it for now. But what we see here is in this list, we now have one of these items is now 60 instead of 0. The item that it is index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's because it was the fifth index button. This list here represents all these 16 buttons here. The number represents which note it's going to play. That's for the display. Gnarly. Yeah. Oh, let me catch up on the chat here. Really cool. You figured out how to use a built-in display from the Titano. Yeah, so what we're going to do, we're going to communicate from the Pico to the Titano, and then the Titano will be like just a dumb you know, a dumb display, right? It won't know, you know, it won't handle any of the real stuff, but it'll get a data blob which has only what it needs to be able to populate the display and update it. My amp is set at 9 to 10, system volume is at 75. Oh, let me catch up. What you did the other day with LMMS was perfect. Exploring VSTs as part of the process, yeah. LMMS does seem pretty cool. I actually did learn a little bit more about it. I learned how to do, somebody had asked about recording different channels, essentially, like record one instrument with one sequence and then a different instrument with a different sequence. I do think I figured out how to do that. So one of these days we'll have to actually use the authoring tool for a bit more of what it can do. I noticed my camera here died, so let me reset and focused here. There's no MIDI library. Is there no MIDI library you can plug it into? I guess you don't need one of the... Yes. No, I did. Yep, that's great. That's right. I didn't get one of the 1306s, but that's totally fine. I'm not worried about it. I'm actually excited for this opportunity to make this sort of two-part thing here, right? Like, this is an idea I've had in mind for a while, trying to figure out how to use a PyPortal as a sort of dumb display for another project. So it actually works out pretty perfectly, I think. Is there no MIDI library? I mean, there is the MIDI. There's Adafruit MIDI, right? There's Adafruit MIDI, this right here, which has got MIDI stuff for us to send note on and note off through the USB port. But I'm not sure if you mean that or something different. So on the PyPortal side, let's start out over there. And I think the first thing we want to do is I want to just make a representation of the sequence. The most basic version, let's just have on-off. And then eventually what we'll try to do is have the actual notes as well, since each note can be different. But let's start with just the on-off. That way we'll essentially have another output of these LEDs being on or not. We'll have it on the PyPortal display. We have a little bit of stuff we need to set up in order to do that, so we can go display IO. Let's make a main group equals group, display IO.group. That would be the presets, which is part of the program change. Presets, which is part of the program change. Not sure what you mean, sorry. Group. So we'll have a group, we'll say display equals board display, which is controlled via status byte. Status byte? You must be talking about something in the MIDI protocol, I'm thinking. I don't actually know too much about it. Is there a display? Maybe there's like a display portion of the MIDI protocol? I'm not using that if that does exist. I am using my own sort of just built-in object and sent it UART. I'm not sending the actual MIDI data over to the PyPortal. We're sending meta information about the sequence and the other stuff. Basically state information from the sequencer. Main group, well, we'll show the main group display, show. Should we use root group? That's the new way, right? So this should not do anything different except for the fact that we won't see it on the PyPortal display anymore. It'll take over the display with a blank group. Perfect. So I want to make 16 things, right? 16 things, one to represent each item in the sequence. Do we want to just run 16 across? It feels awfully wide to run 16 across. I think maybe we'll do 2 rows of 8. Even though it's 1 row of buttons, I think we'll have the visualization be 2 rows. Yeah, 2 rows of 8. I think I'll make them just, to start with, I'm going to make them VectorIO rectangles, or circles, maybe even circles. So I'm going to make it in 2 rows. So I'm going to go for row in range 2, for call in range 8. Make a circle, which I don't know how to do off the top of my head. I don't know the syntax off the top of my head. I know how to do it, but I don't know the exact code. Probably could get close, or honestly, we could use the doc strings, but we're there now. So circle equals VectorIO circle. It takes a pixel shader. It takes a radius. It takes an XY. Pixel shader. Let's say palette equals palette. How many colors? Let's just go with 2 for now. I want gray. White? We probably don't want white though. Should it just be brighter? Let's start with just brighter maybe, but not quite white. Let's see, this might need to go darker still. We have a palette, and then we're gonna go, so inside this loop we're gonna go circle equals, we should probably go like sequence circles is a list. Circles is a new circle. Which had what? Pixel shader, palette, radius. We want real small. Radius is only maybe like 6 or something. Maybe that's even too much. We'll see. XY. So X is gonna be call times 12? I don't know if that's right. Y is gonna be row times, let's do 14. Let's add that to our list of circles. Let's also add it to our main group. Let's see if we have a bunch of circles drawn now. Yes, okay, we do. They are very tiny. They are very, 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 very tiny. Also, the bunch of them are halfway off the display. MIDI for Arduino. Breaks down the MIDI packet pretty well. Yeah, I'll have to check it out another time. I'm not super, like right now I'm interested in this portion of it, the MIDI sequencer telling the display what to show. At this point, I'm happy sending the most basic MIDI packet of all, because I don't know how to handle it all on this side either yet, so I kind of got to learn both sides all at once. So I'll be sticking for now with the very, very basic packets. Just we're essentially just sending note on, note off of a particular note, and we're not doing much else yet. No pitch bends or control changes or any of this kind of stuff. I don't really know what a lot of these things do, truthfully, yet. I will check out this video, though, because this video looks like it's probably going to be telling me that exact kind of stuff. Main group, so we'll append that, and then we'll make these bigger. Should we, I mean, we might as well just start kind of parameterizing this, right? Let's say note circle R is, we go bigger than we have now, honestly. We could go quite a bit bigger, truthfully. For the radius, we could say maybe try 10. Probably still go even bigger, honestly, but this way we can change it in the up there though, and then so the call here we want it's gonna be R. I think we should add some padding too though, right? I think we should add some padding. So let's go column times note. We add the padding before? Doesn't matter, does it? I think it matters. Plus, let's say maybe like six pixels in between. Is that what that does? Not really. Notes, oh, but that's radius, so it would actually, we want times 2. Times 2. Okay, that's better. And then instead of 14, we would actually do basically like the same thing, honestly. So why don't we also make a padding note circle, call it margin. We can go bigger, honestly. Start with 16, maybe. Be row times 16, or note circle margin. Oh, 16 though. Wait, no, we don't want. We want. Yeah. No. It should be no, yeah, that's not right. We want note radius times 2 plus the margin. Okay. And then for the if we use the margin here, we should have equal margins. Okay. We can still go bigger, and we're still halfway off the display as well, so we'll have to do that. We'll have to change it over voice changes. Let's see, protocol changed, oh really? Changed in 2014 to include 3.3 volts. The spec doesn't have to be 0 and 5 volts anymore. Interesting, didn't know that. Was to answer the question in the last video. Okay, if you can change the instrument. You have to do it via MIDI protocol and use the instrument in LMS or whatever DAW, which is Audio Workshop or something, digital audio. The actual instrument is hosted virtually by the PC, not the MIDI controller. I see. Conventional defaults by channel. Yeah, the way I found was I could do like one full, I could record, I think they call it a track inside of LMS maybe, but I could be wrong too. But I could record one track and then I could actually record it as MIDI or record it as audio and then keep it in its own track and then like let it play back and go and work on a whole nother track where the sequencer is no longer involved, but that recorded track still plays back from my computer. I did manage to figure that out, how to do that. I didn't make anything particularly interesting with it, but I did figure out how to do it. Do we want to move the XY of these further, or do we want to just put them into a group and that way we can move them all together? I think we put them into a group so that we can move them all together, right? They're probably still gonna have to get bigger as well. Which index? Which color index? Color index. What's the default? Doesn't say. Should it be 0? Those feel awfully bright. I don't know if that actually got darker. Maybe it's drawing the DDD one. Oh, no, that's definitely much darker that time. Okay. Switch, you could switch between voices through MIDI messages as well. Okay. What is this? I'll have to, short read? What does that mean? I don't know what that means. Short read. We must have like saved it while it was in the middle of reading the UART or something like that, I guess. Voices are notes, but also when talking about synthesizers, usually refer to monophonic or polyphonic voices in a synth. Ah, I gotcha. Yeah, I'll have to look into the protocol more. I'm sure there, like I said before, I'm sure I'm just barely scratching the surface. I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of cool stuff that we can still do as far as like having the controller kind of tell the host PC to change instruments for us. We want to be putting this into the notes group for now. And then when we're done with all of that, we'll add notes group to main group. And notes group.x. This is where I wish that group had a width. Wish that group would calculate its width for you. All right, so basically this is a big old formula where we're gonna divide by, we're gonna minus, we're gonna go display.width over 2 minus essentially the width of notes group over 2, but we don't just have the width of notes group, we're gonna have to calculate it, which is 8 times the radius times 2, because it's diameter, plus the margin. But we need the, hopefully. There we go. We got back to green in OBS. There we are. Nope, definitely hiccuped on my side. Should be back now, though. Oh, I just realized I've had the YouTube chat covered up for a minute. There we go. Now I can see it. Okay. Where are we at here? So catch this short read error. Pretty doesn't really matter. Do that just so if we catch that in the future, it will not cause us to crash. All right, well, so much for being centered still. Notes group width. Why? Let me catch up. Might be, in this case, in a voice channel controller message. Give me different things. Don't remember which is which. Last time I looked, found it's less than intuitive. Just making music, I usually only know voices being something associated with mono or poly. VSTs actually have the word voices labeled in the synth, some for actual physical polyphonic, like the old Korg synths. Give me a moment to remember the Apple puts all the controls on the other side, makes them only one. Yeah, 0.5 millimeters. What are we actually? All right, we're spamming. Probably you're gonna have to turn that off, actually, huh? Okay, ended up with 448. Two, three, four, five, six, 7, 8. But what's our display width? I guess it's 480. So why is our X, so it should be 240 minus 224, which is like something positive. $16. Why do we not get 16? $16. Okay. I think the problem is that the circles are placed by their center point, which means that the left half of the circles on the left and the top half of the circles on the top are actually halfway outside of the group. Which is probably part of why groups don't have a way to give you their width, is because they don't actually contain the things, right? Their width can be bigger than their width. Which doesn't make sense, but is how it is. So we actually want here to scooch this, I think. Let's do all of this. Hey, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's do all of this and then just scooch it by the radius plus radius. Same thing for the Y. Kicker VST was playing with the other day would be monophonic, onophonic, only one note, which is the kick drum. A polyphonic kick drum would make no sense. Yeah, I had the kick drum for a minute, and then we had a couple of other synths. Okay, now I think it is honestly still not actually centered, but now I guess it's... I mean, it's close enough. It's definitely close enough. I'm guessing the reason is either we're off by 1 because of the margins somehow, and then we're off by 1 like times 8 because we're multiplying by 8, or yeah, I don't know. That's my best guess, actually. Oh, wait. Oh. Hold on. One of these is wrong. Is one of these wrong? This should not be here, should it? Is this different? Not really. In a way that's obvious. I don't know. I feel like we're still too far to the left, but honestly, I'm not going to mess with it any further. What I'm going to do is just go x plus a little bit. Plus, like... We're going to do y also. Notes group y equals, let's just go down a bit, like 10 maybe? There we go. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now let's say we want white circles or lighter circles. We want the other color of circle, D, whenever that one in the sequence is on. So we are going to do what? We are going to, when we receive our packet here, when we unpack it, data object equals this, print it, and then we're gonna say for note in data object notes if note. Technically, this is kind of implied, but I'm going to write it out anyway. If it's not 0, then we're going to go find our circle inside of sequence circles. Ooh, we need I. Enumerate. Sequence circles I dot color index equals 1. If the note is not 0, then set that to 1. Else, if it is 0, set that to 0. We could check if it's already 0. I don't know if it matters. Oh, that's interesting. 2 of them are on already. Is it just me, or does that not make any sense? Oh. How do we have 2 nuns? Do they go to none? I bet you they go to none when you turn them off. They go to none when you turn them off. We need them to go back to 0. Yeah, when I started writing this, I actually started writing it with these being none instead of 0. I ended up changing it to 0. Technically, 0 is probably not actually the best choice, because I think 0 is technically a note, if I understand correctly. Maybe some of the folks that do know the internals of MIDI will know that. I know 60, the number 60 is middle C. The number 0, I guess, is like low, low, low something, right? I assume it's something down there. In my case, though, I'm cheating, and I'm using 0 to indicate don't play anything. I will just never be able to play that super low G or whatever is way down there on 0, if it is actually a thing. So right now, though, our problem is that the code is setting it back to none instead of 0. That's probably going to be inside read buttons. Toggle latch. Where does notes change? Notes. Right there. 0. There we go. Okay, so now we're showing off and on. Let's also try to show the sequence. I have no idea if this part is going to work or not. So we'll see. But what I'm going to try to do is we have one still. We have one still on. Why is that, I wonder? So I think it's because we don't change the selection when we turn a thing off. Oh, goodness gracious with this stuff. You're supposed to send a note off or all off message rather than note 0. Yeah, no, so I am sending note off. Yeah, sorry. When I say that I'm sending, well, when I say 0, I'm using -5. Okay, let's not worry about -5. That is super weird. I don't know what's up with that. We'll figure that out later. When I say, though, that I'm sending, that I'm using 0 to indicate no note, I'm not sending 0. I'm just using that in my data object to indicate that. We do send a note off. I have actually 2 slightly different behaviors with note off because I found one worked better for certain kinds of instruments, I will call them loosely. But when we go to play the note, we send a note on right there. We wait for a little bit of time, and then if send off is true, which right now it is true, then we send our note off right there. And we send note off of the same note that we played. So if we sent note number 60, middle C here for, excuse me, right here rather, if we sent number 60, middle C right there to play on, then we will send the same thing here, note off with a 60. And then 0, this I think did come from the example code. I'm less sure what the second number there, the 0 does, but yeah. So I think that when we turn off a item, I don't know the right terms. Does anybody know? Is there a term for these things? Are they? They're not really notes, right? Especially when they're off. But anyway, I'll call them an item in the sequence just for, you know, a need to refer to it. But when we turn off an item in the sequence by pressing the button, if it was the thing that was selected, which is the one that's blinking like that, so we have this idea of selection built in. Right now, the yellow one right here is selected. If I press this, turn this a little bit, now the blue one is selected. And if I press this again, the rotary, and now I turn this, I can change the selected note. So that's how we get different note values or whatever. But what the problem is that when we click to turn this off, we don't change the selection. So this one was selected and I turned it off, but technically the way it's supposed to be is that you're not really supposed to be allowed to have a thing selected if it's not turned on. So what we need to do is when we turn off a item in the sequence, we need to move the selection to somewhere else, to the next one that is on, however we define next. For me, I think I'm just going to do a increment for that. Steps, thank you, steps. Okay, step in the sequence. Yeah, I like that. Thank you for that. As step sequencers, yeah, I've totally heard that as well. You can change the amount of steps in a measure as well, but it's down the road stuff. Steps. Okay, so we have steps. We have the step buttons. We have our step LEDs, and then we have our step representations on the display over here. So let me think though. Where do we do this? So we want to say, I mean, right here we're turning the value of the LED pin to off. I mean, it doesn't really matter when we do it, I don't think, right? We just need to go if what index are we on though? E number? E number. Okay. So we need to go if state.selectedIndex is equal to, I forgot the name of the function. There's a function that will index the chip and index. We want the vice versa, though. We want chip and index to index. Chip and index to index, MCP number, key number. That's going to get our index. So if the button that was pressed is the step that is currently the selected step, then increment the selected one past that state. What I don't know is what it will do if there's only one. It might not work if there's only one. I'm actually going to do it with two because I think that's the easier test first. Okay, so the light turned on, which is not what we wanted, but the rest of the logic was fine. And then once we passed that in the sequence again, once we passed that step in the sequence again, then it was fixed. Let's try it with the 1 here. No, it keeps blinking. I think what we need is in here, we need this break. So we need to say if we make it to here. No. Because we're always going to make it to here because we're going to break out of there. So once we make it to here, if checked is greater than or equal to 16, then just put selected index as -1, which is how we indicate that nothing is selected. We basically need the same thing here. If we don't find an eligible step, then just make nothing selected anymore. Yeah, light on, but then as soon as we cycle past it, we're okay. Selected index is still showing 4. Oh, maybe we do. Maybe we need to do it. We need to do it after we change notes, actually. Yeah. Because if we haven't changed notes yet, then like that's what it's keying off of. So we actually need to wait until after toggle latch. We might as well do it after we set the value as well, right? There we go. That's actually turned off now as well. Okay. Interestingly, this one turned on. Maybe it's just 50-50. Maybe it depends like what state it was in when you pressed it. Because it is blinking really fast. Let me try one more time. I wonder if it's always just that the last one stays on? Do we get setting LED to false there, or? Let's turn off this spam. This is inside update display. Actually don't need to seek if we don't print. Well, if we don't read. LED to false. Setting LED to false, but it definitely is true. So the blink must have set it back to true right afterwards. Okay, here we should say if nothing is selected, then just turn everything off. Right now, all we do is sleep, which essentially means do nothing. We should turn all the LEDs off. Feels kind of wasteful because like only one of them could be on. But we don't know which one because the actual index is already the new index. So we'd have to keep track of the old one as well. We wanted to be able to just turn the old one off, but I think that's fine. I think we just loop, turn them all off. I do wish, so it is tough. We don't have an easy, like, I guess we could just loop range. So we just loop range, I guess, yeah. Where I in range 16 LED pins per chip. See, yeah, it's gonna be like, let's go chip index. Wish I could hang out a bit longer. Got to turn in now. Thanks, Tim. Good night, all. Yeah, take it easy, Dave Odessa. Hope you have a nice night. Thanks for tuning in for what you could. Definitely appreciate it. And yeah, happy New Year. I doubt probably won't get a chance to see you again before the New Year, but Happy New Year, and I hope everything goes well for you. Chip num index equals, that's the chip and index, no, other way around. Index to chip and index. The index is I. That's going to give us back those things. Then we go chip num index dot value false. That should turn them all off. It's interesting that this one turns off. There we go. That one turns off now as well. Okay, now I think we have the behavior we... Oh. Did that not count as a press? Okay, it must have just not counted as a press. We turn that off, and now that's selected. Turn that off, and now nothing is selected. Okay. So, and I think the display has been working right, hasn't it? When we have these turned on, we're getting the associated step circles here on our display to light up to white. So that's pretty good. I would like to show the one that is selected on the display. How do I want to show it? So I want to draw a box around it, but I know that that's going to be actually a bit challenging. But I might just do it that way. Usually you're only modifying one step at a time. Modifying multiple steps at the same time sounds useful, but not part of the basic feature set of a sequencer. That's a really neat idea I'm all for. Yeah, modifying multiple would be interesting. The way I have it now, it's definitely like only modifying one step at a time. Like you have one step is the selected step, and then you're able to modify that one step. It would be interesting if you could do multiples as well, though, somehow. That would be pretty interesting. It might be, you know what would be kind of cool is if you could do like, if you could modify all the ones that are on currently by going up or down and like, and they keep where they're at. So like if you have, you know, A, B, C, and you go up by one, then you end up with B, C, D. You know, like they'll keep their distance relative to each other, but it might be cool if you could take the whole thing up or down one note or even one octave or something. That would be kind of cool. Or if you had some kind of multi-select mode, I guess you could have like maybe you press a different button and that takes you to multi-select mode where now you press buttons to select more things rather than pressing buttons to turn them on and off. That could be one way to do it as well. All right, let's try to show the one that is selected. I think we'll use a box and I'll draw it behind the circles, and we'll have to move its XY coordinates to the right spot based on what is selected, which will be kind of tough, but we'll make it happen. That's what we're all about here, is getting the tough stuff done on the old deep dive. So let's make a rectangle. We're gonna have to import VectorIO rectangle. I'm gonna probably need this page as well. Rectangle. So this one has width, height, XY, palette. Pretty straightforward. So we only need to make one of these. Actually, why don't we... So my first inclination was to make one of these and then just change the XY coordinates to whichever one is currently selected, and that's definitely the most efficient thing to do. But if we actually made one square for every circle and then hid all but one, usually we would get the same effect, but we wouldn't have to worry about recalculating X and Y. I actually kind of like the sound of... This is definitely the lesser efficient of the two things, but we kind of have some leeway by virtue of the PyPortal is only the display. The PyPortal doesn't have to use RAM for anything to do with MIDI or note playing or any of that stuff. So we can actually, I'm thinking we can probably get by on the lesser efficient of a couple of options, just due to the fact that we're not actually asking the PyPortal to do that much. Okay, let's go black, That's not black. What color for selected? Do we need two colors? We don't really need two colors. Let's try that for now. Oh, wait. I want more. That's not what I want. I want more like this. Darkish teal. See what that gives us. Oh, let me catch up here. Usually the VST will handle the octave +1 or -1 in the GUI of the instrument. Ah, that could be as well. Yeah, I think you could control that on the computer side. Some synths and sequencers have a physical button for octave shifts. Also, all the 6mm buttons I put in there were for making features dedicated to something other than having only one encoder. 6mm buttons I put in there were for making features dedicated to something other than having only one encoder to do everything. I have a specific idea for them, but I figure they come in handy. Yes. Orange always answers orange. We could do orange. Orange does seem more kind of appropriate for audio selection. I feel like lots of stuff does highlight orange when it's selected. Will this be orange? Be orange-ish, maybe, we'll see. Palette, we're gonna use the other palette, selected palette. Width, height, XY. So width, height, they're easy. Let's just do the diameter of the circle plus a little bit, maybe. Times 2. Plus maybe like 2 pixels on either side, so 4 total. Height, same thing. X, actually pretty close to the same X as the circle, but just different. We're not going to plus this, I don't think. Okay, and then we want to, we probably shouldn't say sequence circles. Oh, yeah, no, that's fine, actually. Notes group. Let's call this steps group. Steps group. We actually want to append the rectangle before the circle. That way it's beneath it. And we actually also want to... let's leave it like that for now. I think we still need to scoot by 2 pixels. Yeah. Basically half of the 4 that we left ourselves here. There we go. Okay, so right now they're all orange. They all have recs behind them, but what we'll do is we'll actually go rect.hidden equals true, which turns them all back off. Then when we receive our packet here, we will go if data selected index is greater than 0, greater than equal to 0. Then go rectangles select, what did I call them? Sequence rects. Selected index. Dot hidden equals false. Sequence rect append rect. Cannot find reference hidden. I believe in you. I think you'll find it. Yeah. Oh, it didn't change. Oh. Uh-oh. Oh. Yeah, we gotta turn all the rest of them off. I guess we're just gonna loop them. I feel like we should not hide it if it's the one that is selected, because we're just going to show it like a split second later, and I think it's going to blink. So if it's not the selected index, then set it to hidden true. So this will turn off all the ones that are no longer selected. If the one that is selected is already on, then it will keep it on. The next line right here, though, if it's not on, it will turn it on. And by turn it on, I mean make it not hidden, which means it will become visible. So one thing is my selection is broken. It used to select the step that you most recently turned on, but it's not doing that anymore. Why is that? We must have broken that with our new code to deselect. Right. This, yes. Okay. This needs to not do this. This should only be, we should only do this if, get latch, if this comes to false. New latch state. If not new latch state, then we do this. Because we only want this to happen if we turned the thing off, not when we turned it on. Do we not save this? Why does this have... selected index -1? Must have logic errored. Right. Probably should handle a key error in case we don't actually receive the right data, but mess with that later. There we go. Now the one that we select, the one that we turn on most recently becomes the selected one. Did crash over here though. Int isn't subscriptable, 77. I think we need to, generally speaking, validate the object we got. I think what happened is because I ran it because I saved the PyPortal while this was running, I think the PyPortal woke up and only caught the very tail end of the message. Therefore, it essentially didn't receive a valid data object, and then it crashed when it tried to access stuff from that object. So I think we should, generally speaking, validate our object here and only take action if it looks like an actual valid object that came from the sequencer. Because if the communication got interrupted at all, which this is just a plain old UART line, there could be interference, you could be mistimed, you could just get garbled data. We should probably handle that more gracefully. So let's go if data object is instance data object. Just go dictionary. Will that say if it is a dictionary? Let's actually make a function like validate data object. Def validate data object return true. So we're going to check if it's a dictionary. We're going to check if it has the notes list. And we're going to check if it has the selected index. If it's so we'll say if not, return false. Notes in, not in, data object keys, return false, or selected index not in data object dot keys. Return false. If it's not a dictionary or if it's missing either of those two things, then return false. One more thing we could check is if not is instance data object notes list. Return false. Otherwise, if we get past all that stuff, then return true. Then here we go if validate data object. Okay. My early attempts, I was using enumerate and was having issues like this. I can see now I should have been validating the enumerations. To beginner errors, let's see, to a beginner, errors are kind of the validator. Yes, that is true. Yeah, and know that it's broken once you see it. Ooh, I did not. We can see our selection moving, and I can also, if I move it around like that, I can move the selection as well. So we're able to see our selection, we're able to move our selection. I think the next thing that would be cool is to have the notes coming through. Which means we're basically going to be making a label for each one of these. Back to here, we're gonna go sequence. I have no idea if I'm running close on RAM or not either, so we might run out of RAM. And then we may have to go back and do a little bit of efficiency boosting in a few places, but we'll see. Sequence labels hidden, so we're gonna be making a label equals bitmap label equals, let's just call it label. So say terminal.io font text empty. Yeah, let's just leave it like that for now. Import that. Importantly, we do want display text, because I was working on a modified version of label earlier today. We want to make sure that we get the real one. Label is this, and now I think what we do is we just use anchor point, and we anchor point it to the exact same point as the XY of the circle, and that should center it inside the circle, I believe. Anchor point 0.5, 0.5, and then anchored position. That's going to be the same point as the circle. And in this case, like the exact same point, I believe. Oh wow, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that. It's coming together. I'm glad this is working out as well as I thought. To be honest with you, this is the first time I've ever used UART between two microcontrollers for this purpose of kind of making one of them into a terminal for the other. Okay, so we created labels, but that's all we did. We should add them still. We'll put it after the circle. So we go steps group, append, label. Yeah. And then down here, when we're looping this stuff, when we're looping notes right here, if note is not 0, sequence labels. Sequence labels? Shouldn't that be labels? Oops. Labels. We also did an append to that. Let's do that. Label. Theoretically, we don't really, we might be able to get away without needing these lists. We could technically just be using the groups, honestly. We could make one group for each of these, and then the group essentially is a list. So like, and have keys. I don't know why. Okay, so labels is inside of here, labels is inside of here. We're gonna look up the label as I dot text equals note. I don't know if it's gonna be too big, too small. Crash. Int object has no find. I think that's because we need to call string on it. Right now, note is a number, and it doesn't like to set numbers into text. It really wants to have strings. We should probably internally check for number and handle it, though, maybe. Okay, so the text is white. Let's make the text black so that we can actually see it. Oh, interesting. It stays there, actually. Yeah, I guess that does make sense, because... So we would want this like that. Let's make the color black also. Color. Can't do that. It needs to be either hex or tuple, I think. One of the neat things about MIDI controller or sequencer specifically is it doesn't actually play audio files from the Pico, only MIDI packets. That would take up a lot of RAM. Yeah, that's true. That's definitely really nice, is the actual thing that we are... The meat of the data is just that. It's not very big, is it? I don't even know how big a MIDI packet is, but it's like a couple of bytes, if that. It's not. It's very, very small, much smaller than like a waveform sample or something would take up in memory for sure. So, and the nice thing about that is it makes it so your instrument is whatever instrument you want, right? Like if you're playing wave samples, then you're playing whatever the actual sound you have is, but here we're outputting MIDI, which means the computer gets to decide what the instrument is, right? It can be bells, it can be drums, it can be guitars, it can be pianos, it can be, anything and everything. Synth, it can be voice, like, you can talk into the microphone and then like auto-tune from the notes or whatever. It can do so many different things. Oh, somehow we broke it. How did I manage to break it? So the selected was broken and interesting. I think it might just be behind. I think it might actually just be behind. You know what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop printing, because I think that actually printing might be taking up a fair amount of time. We can always turn it back on if we are troubleshooting the actual data. We are behind. Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, 6 Mississippi, 7 Mississippi, 8 Mississippi. We're going too slow for some reason. I guess, yeah, I mean, it's probably the thing that we added most recently, right? Let's do a little bit better here as well. If the text is not already empty, then do this. Does changing the index here have a penalty? I bet you this is it, honestly. I think setting the text is actually fairly costly in terms of time. Yeah. we're still... We are still slow a little bit, actually. I have another idea. Only refresh the display if we got a valid object and we changed something. You can't see the number in there. A little bit too small. But there it is showing the number in there and it is accurate. It's just it's behind. It's not quite as extreme as it was, although it is actually looking like it now. Like we slow down over time, I wonder. 3 bytes for MIDI. Yeah, entire studio of instruments at your fingertips. So I think that somehow we need to speed this up a bit. Could that be making us behind? Wouldn't be by that much, I wouldn't think. Say start time. Of course, this puts the prints back, which I think artificially influences this. So yeah, so our problem is that this is taking 0.15 seconds. 0.15 seconds, but on our sender side, we are actually sending at 0.125. We're sending faster than the receiver side can handle, which means we're going to be constantly getting further and further behind. And this 0.001 is like almost nothing of this. So that's probably not going to matter. So we need to figure out which things take the most time. And ideally try to not do them unless we absolutely have to. Which I suppose we pretty much have to, like, measure before we know. Of course, the print. The thing here is, like, we have, like, observer problem. By printing, we're actually going to be affecting this, I think. I don't think we can like measure it in a way where we can actually see it without also affecting it. So, I mean, for one thing, we're looping over 1 to 16 twice. We could get rid of one of these loops, I think. Specifically chose 125 because it's 120 beats a minute. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Yeah, 120.125 is hard-coded as the speed. We may eventually have a tempo thing as well, so we might make it to where you can actually set the tempo. Although worth noting, CircuitPython doesn't guarantee like real-time stuff, right? So it's not going to be like down to the atomic clock or whatever. So unpack takes hardly anything. Validate takes hardly anything. First loop still hardly anything. Honestly, interesting. Is it? Well, I mean, at this point, I suppose the refresh then is the. So we can't really do much about that, actually. I mean, yeah. Kind of has to I mean, I guess what we could be doing is, like, not refreshing unless the data changed. I suppose there is that. Which that might actually help, actually. That could get it to the point where we can... The ones where we actually have to modify the screen were too slow, but... Of course, I also had hoped ultimately to show the currently playing step, which in that case, we would need to update the display every frame, because the current step will always change. I don't know. Another thing we could try, ultimately, this is the PyPortal Titano. PyPortal Regular might be a better choice, because it's a smaller display with fewer pixels, which means it can refresh faster. So we might want to switch to a smaller display in order to speed up the refreshing. So, because we're gonna want it, like, we're gonna want to be able to handle one frame on the PyPortal at least as fast as we're sending it from the sequencer. Ideally, even faster, honestly. What would be nice is if the PyPortal could probably handle one frame of data and update the display at like half the speed that the sequencer is sending it. That way we still have plenty of like headroom before we start slowing down and getting behind. I don't know if we'll make it to there, but that would be like, I think, ideal. Okay, so let's let this run a second and then stop it. Yeah, unfortunately, like, literally all of our time is inside the refresh. And I don't think we get any better if we have auto refresh on. Do we? No. In this case, it seems like, well, this time we got an iteration without a refresh, and therefore it was much faster. The majority of them, though, it looks like, well, maybe I shouldn't say the majority, but at least a couple of the ones that I saw, yeah, like this one, the refresh actually happened before the unpack. So I think auto refresh is probably not the answer. I think we want to control the refreshing. Be the SS. Oh, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, no, I appreciate what you have given me so far. I'm more than happy to play with other displays. Even if this one doesn't end up working, we can try the regular PyPortal. If that doesn't end up working, I have smaller displays still as well. We'll make something work. I'm not worried about it at all. I did, if you mean the orange and some orange keycaps, if you mean these ones, I did get those. I just haven't put them on. Those things? Oh, those aren't orange though, so I'm not sure actually what you mean. Maybe you mean orange. Maybe you mean like different ones of these. Stemma ports. There was, I think, I'd have to look back through the pack. There might have been a stemma port. I just remembered you said something about the stemma port not working, so I ended up not soldering it. You know, I had the Pico. I think I bodged the stacking headers though. I probably can't make it focus. When I use this Pico though, I don't have a valid connection on I2C. When I use this Pico, I just get like a missing pull-up resistor. And I think what happened is I'm not used to soldering on the underside. With the pins. I'm more used to using regular headers where you would solder on the top and then the pins would stick out the bottom. And I think on a couple of my pins, I got solder partway up the pin. And I think it makes it not make a great connection inside of the headers over there. So I did, unfortunately, I think I did maybe not wreck the Pico certainly, but it's unusable in this project at least. And that's just on me. I think to be honest with you, I don't know. I'm trying to think back. I don't know that. I think this might have been the first stacking header that I tried to solder. And it looks all right. It just, I think I got a little bit of extra boogers there. A little further down the pin, which then made it not connect to the header. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent, wasn't it? That was all. Mostly we started with whether I got these things. Yeah, I will put these ones on there as well too. I just haven't gotten around to that part yet. Orange. Oh, okay. Steps. Okay, for these ones. I see. The TR-808. Nice. Put some flux on the pin. Heat up the pin. Oh, interesting. Solder should slide down. I'll have to find the flux. Sounds about it sounds about like what I've been experiencing so far with the display update. Not sure how long ago that was in the chat. I just saw it, so I'm not sure what I said before that. So if we're gonna have any chance to make this work this way, we need to not refresh the display if it didn't change. Let's keep the old data object. Old object or previous. Whoops. Previous. Prev object. None. At the end of this loop, we go prev object equals data object. You can't just compare dictionaries though. Can you? Can you? Maybe you can. Am I thinking JavaScript? Okay, you can compare dictionaries. So if the data object is the same as the previous one, then we know we don't need to update. update the display, because if nothing changed inside the data object, then there's nothing that should have to change on the display. I think that we probably won't be able to show the current one in the sequence, at least not in the way I was originally imagining doing it, because that would cause us to have to refresh every frame. But we should still be able to do it this way, I think. So we just say refresh is here. Let's put these back. And then let's go if data object is not equal to previous data object. Then we do all of this. Do we need after refresh? We don't really, right? Because we have into loop. Catch up here. I've had plenty of practice. There's more. There's like 350 solder joints I made, more than a few fully assembled. The little bits. Yeah, when I was going through it, I was like, Devin is a trooper for doing more than one of these, honestly. Because I was going through it. It took me I mean, not like all day or anything, but it took me a good chunk out of the middle of the day there. But I'm like a slow solderer. I'm relatively unpracticed. Or really what it is I speed up over time. Like, the first probably like 10 solder joints that I made took a lot of time. And then after that, I kind of sped up a little bit, sped up a little bit, sped up a little bit. By the last couple solder joints, I was like just zooming right along. I just don't solder with enough regularity to keep my speed, though. I kind of always have to have the training wheels slow me down when I first sit down and do it again. It was fun, though, honestly. I will say, good job on just putting the kit together. Like, I actually found it to be an enjoyable thing to put together. You had everything parted out perfectly. I didn't have any trouble with like missing pieces or any kinds of issues, really. I put everything in. The Pico was the one thing like I was talking about before. Once I swapped to a different Pico, though, like, smooth sailing. Everything was 100% good. So, good job on the kit, by my estimation. I was actually impressed you got all the LEDs and switches soldered up correctly. Yeah, the ground, I will, yeah. That is definitely true. That is 100% true. I forgot about that. I remember in your instructions it says that the ground plane or whatever. I definitely did. I definitely know what you were talking about. When I read that, I was trying to imagine what it was going to be like. But yeah, when I was doing it, I definitely really noticed what you're talking about, where some of those pins, I guess all the ground ones, they take forever to heat up, some of them, and you really have to just let it go, or else it doesn't connect to the board. It, like, you can melt solder and it will get onto the pin, but if it's not touching the board, then it doesn't help you. I did see that as well. Yeah. How do people get around that? Do they like subdivide the ground plane or something? Because I feel like, ground planes are kind of always massive, aren't they? Isn't that part of just what a ground plane is? One of the nice things about the board is there's so many, if you're rusty, you're not by the end, yeah. No, yeah. The 0 ohm resistors. Oh, interesting. 0 ohm resistors makes the solder not do that? Man, electricity is fascinating. The more you learn, the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. I guess stands to reason, but... Okay, we're looking pretty real time, actually. To be honest with you, that looks pretty good. That's looking pretty good. I think that might just be good enough, like... if you're literally staring at the screen while you push the button, like looking at the exact place where you know it's about to light up or not, this one stayed on for a second. I don't know what that was about, but that light stayed on. We might need to double check the logic in there again. I thought we were turning those off, but we might have a situation where it can actually stay on until the next cycle, then it turned off. That's looking pretty good. I mean, we are still technically, actually this still seems slow. Are those only when we changed? We should be having some iterations that are much faster. I feel like we broke something here. Because we're already at 0.13 by the time we get done with unpack even. We shouldn't be that. Am I looking at the old bit? Or did I turn auto refresh? Auto refresh is false. We have before refresh? And it didn't print this time, so we did not refresh. So I don't get why this is so much time. And then the other thing is I don't get, if this is over 0.125, then we should be slowing down. It shouldn't feel this close to real time. But I mean, like, even the rotary encoder, like, it doesn't focus, you all can't see it. The number that's in there, I can just watch that change real smoothly as I turn the encoder. Garbage collect? How come we were so much slower before? I mean, faster before. I think we turn this off for now. Provides a hole so that the path to ground isn't directly to the board. It'll go through the resistor trace next time, which will allow it to which will allow the switch pins to heat up, no problem. And the hard one will be the other side of the resistor, so just moving the heat up point. Rather it be resistor than overheating something on the inside of the switch. I see. Because you're literally heating up the entire ground plane. Yeah. Okay, well, I mean, sounds like you got the approach for next time nailed down. At least you got the lessons learned. I had another one where the lights stayed on, but I mean, it seems running all right. It's like already there, but where does the time come from? Why? Because this was in the like 0.000, well, 2 zeros at least. That was like the neighborhood it was in before, right? Like, why are we suddenly in the 0.15 neighborhood now? Am I crazy? We were much faster, right? And still the second half of the question is, if no matter why it's going that slow, if it is actually going that slow, why is it able to stay caught up to the sequencer now? I am extraordinarily confused. I don't know why it's taken as long as it is, and then I don't know why, if it is actually taking that long, why it's doesn't feel like it is when it's actually running and we're looking at the display. Like earlier we had multiple seconds of time delay between when we took an action on the sequencer and when that action was represented on the display. And now, I mean, it's not literally instant. There is a delay, but it's like very fast. And I do not understand that at all. If this is true, it should not be as snappy. I mean, I guess we're not off by that far? Not off by that far. 0.125 versus 0.144. But I mean, isn't that the same as what we were seeing? Isn't that like the same as what we were seeing? We're using thermal reliefs, the X thing. Annular ring is tiny, thermal relief barely visible. Emily can definitely say thermal relief didn't do its job. Its primary job is to help the ground pin heat up faster. I don't understand that at all. So let's just take stock of what we just witnessed. Make sure I'm not missing something. So the way it's written right now, we refresh every iteration as long as validate data was true. As long as we got validate data, we're going to be calling refresh. Is basically every iteration almost. Maybe not every single one forever and ever and ever, but almost every iteration. And so now all of these are back to the 0.00 neighborhood. Right? But this is super weird because like what we changed was display refresh, which is down here, which is after this has already occurred. But that one change has now caused it so that after bytes IO, after unpack, these are now back to the 0.00 neighborhood. But these occur before the code we changed. How can the code we changed have had any effect on what these numbers come out as? I I don't know. That's weird. I guess this is like, I mean, this could be doing stuff in the background, I suppose, from CircuitPython's perspective. Somehow that's taking up extra time, but yeah, I don't understand that at all. That doesn't make sense to me. So, and that makes it pretty much impossible for me to see, and this is right back to the slow one. Like, it's several seconds before it updates. So it's almost a full cycle through the sequence. This one's more than a full cycle. It took like 2 full cycles before that updated. Okay, I don't know. That is bizarre. The numbers, the math does not add up correctly. In my head, at least. But this is definitely better. Despite what the numbers say, this feels better on the screen. Just watching the screen feels pretty much live. So I'm pretty happy with that. This does make it to where I can't really hypothesize about things to do to try to improve it. Like, really all I could do at this point is just guess and check, because every hypothesis I could come up with would run counter to the actual measurements that we're seeing. Like, I don't know what's happening, so I couldn't even begin to like make a guess about what to change it to do something different if I don't understand what it's doing or how it's doing it. But it does seem better. I am pretty happy with it. I do think I'll try the PyPortal, because I am curious to try the smaller display to see if maybe we can even get our iteration under 0.125. Because I do think it would be ideal if on the PyPortal side, our iteration loop could be under 0.125, since that's what our sequencer is going to be sending. If we can go faster than that, that means we should always be ahead of time, right? We should never be slowing down. So that's a good goal to aim for. So I'm curious to try a different display, the PyPortal regular, potentially even something smaller, ESP32, Feather TFT, something like that. Like, the display is much smaller. It might be harder to represent everything. The text would certainly be kind of difficult at that size, but we have that to experiment with as well if it turns out that the PyPortal is too many pixels for us. The other thing I guess we could do is maybe use scale or something. I don't know if that will make it refresh faster or what, but let me catch up here on the old chat. Let's see here. Round pin. Okay, so enlarge the annular ring for the next revision because soldering iron barely fits on the ring and pin at the same time. Hey, by the way, DJ Devin, and if you don't know the answer, or if you don't have an answer, or if you just need me to ask you another time, that's cool as well. But I'm curious, and I happen to be thinking of it now, and since I know you're here and you're talking about the next revision, do you have plans to offer this device or the kits or anything for sale to the community? Because I might know somebody who's interested in purchasing one. If that is eventually offered for sale, like next revision or whenever you get to a point where you are comfortable doing that, if that's on the table, I think I have somebody who's interested in one. Yeah, fast iterations. I'm 100% with you there. Honestly, have no idea. Fair enough. True, some drum and bass can get up to 170 drum and bass bass 270, so that'd be even faster. So yeah, we'd need to get a ways under 0.125 to be able to handle that, I guess. It's something I occasionally do. Okay. Yeah, we'll have to speed up too, and I also don't know anything on the sequencer side. I have no idea how long it takes it to send the MIDI data. Like the actual MIDI note off, note on type stuff. will take some amount of time, but I have no idea how much these things here. So at some point we might have to be careful, like maybe the sequencer itself might slow down to the point where it might not be able to keep up with that BPM, but it totally depends on what all it's doing. We could also, I think there's probably ways to back off some of this stuff, like the blink selected. I think these could use different values for delay here, which could actually affect how quick some of the other stuff runs as well, potentially, but do you have enough for more kits? Might be missing a few things here and there. I gotcha. Well, if it does become something you're interested in doing, to sell at least one of them, hit me up. I may have somebody who's interested in. I have a total of 20 boards. Nice. Thanks. So you had quite a few. You had a nice medium-sized run there made of the boards. Okay. I think I'm going to call it a night for this evening. I got kind of the basics of what we were working on hammered out, kind of essentially just proved this out as a proof of concept. And we solved the refresh rate problem. You know, like I've been saying, I don't really understand why it's behaving the way it's behaving. So while we did make it better, I can't say as though I have a full grasp on it, but what I have done at least is proved out the concept here. This definitely can work as a way to display some stuff for the sequencer. We know, we might need to try out some different stuff to speed it up so that we can actually update the display quick enough. But generally speaking, the concept seems sound, so I'm pretty happy with it. I will continue working on this. A couple of more things I would like to have it do. If we can, I'd like to have it show the current step. I think that one might be kind of hard though, because we would essentially have to refresh every iteration, which would put us right back to where we were when it was slowing down. So I don't think we'll be able to do that, at least not on this display. But some other things that I do think would be cool to show are some ancillary information, like which modes you're in. So like if you press this knob, it changes which mode you're in. So right now I'm selecting between the steps by turning the knob, and if I press it again, then I go to note selection, where I'm actually changing the value of the note. So now the middle one is higher. Outputting that mode on the display would be nice. There's also a send off mode, which is what controls the note off behavior. Right now that's on this button. It'd be nice to show that on the display as well. A couple other things that aren't specifically tied to the display that I am still interested in doing is using the rest of these buttons a bit more. I think I have up, down. I think up and down will do this. Like up and down on the D-pad will change the note as well. Whichever note is selected, it'll move that up and down, same way the wheel does if you're in note selection mode. I don't think the center button does anything yet. I don't think the left button does anything yet, but it'd be nice to get those hooked up. I don't know, can it know if there's anything plugged in over here? It might be nice to show up on this side if it actually has like actively made a connection or something. It might not know about it through the USB, so in the way that I'm using it, we might not be able to, but if we figure out the different instruments and stuff, like once I learn more about the MIDI packet, I feel like I'm slowly just turning further and further to the left here. Straighten that out a bit. Once I do learn about the MIDI packet, if we get different instruments figured out from the sequencer's perspective, where this thing, if it can tell the computer like, hey, this step is instrument A and this step over here is actually instrument B or whatever. If we can do that, then that'll be another thing to output here. Maybe we have different colors or something on the circles, but so all sorts of different stuff we could be doing here. But anyway, thank you for watching, everybody. I hope everyone does have a good rest of your Friday evening and a happy New Year. Like I mentioned earlier, probably won't be seeing folks again before the New Year's, so I hope everyone has a fantastic start to your New Year's. I'll catch up on the chat here before I go, but we'll wrap it up there. Confidence, let's see, my confidence in it being 100% ready was overestimated. Yeah, well, I think you did a good job. Would be something for my son KY. Put up a disco. Oh, nice. Got the disco in the basement. If anyone's interested, feel free to DM. See how many we can get with the next batch. Website. The GitHub is, yeah, which DJ might have already answered this. The GitHub is the only website I know of. Not sure if I'm comfortable selling him. Yeah, that's totally cool as well. Prep for the big giveaway for Christmas. Yeah. Have a good night. Yep, thanks, Scordy G. Happy New Year to all. Just the GitHub. Yep, he did say the GitHub. Thanks, Paulus K. Thanks for watching. Happy New Year to you as well. I think MIDI uses Node on for connection. This might be something in the protocol packet. Tons of fun. Just tuned in. Cut the end of us on you there, puppy. You can check out the VOD if you're interested, though. We were playing around with the display and the sequencer. There is also a prior VOD if you're interested in the actual MIDI stuff. So that's going to do it for me. Thanks again, everybody. Like I said, I appreciate everyone watching. I do hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your Friday evening and a great start to this next new year. I will be back tomorrow morning on my own channel, 10 a.m. Central Time. If you want to watch me work on some more CircuitPython stuff, that's the next time I'll be back. But otherwise, I will catch you next time, whenever that may be. Thanks, everyone.